and welcome everyone. Intelligent disobedience. What does that mean? The punchline for this is how to say no to your boss and live to talk about it. Because typically, and what happens is that when people are asked to do things, it's very difficult to say no, because saying no means that one is not a team member, one is not a risk taker, one is not trying their best, give it the old college try, and as a result, quite a few failures take place. So we want to talk about, is there a way, and we want to use the word almost a scientific way, and a proven way to say no and live to talk about it, and we believe it is, and we title that Intelligent Disobedience. And the origin of this title will come clear to you just in a few minutes, because that's an intriguing item in itself, where we learned it from. So let's see what that is. So, a very interesting quote. A common mistake is that people often jump in and solve the wrong problem. It is often when you're conversing with people. As you are saying your point of view, many people are beginning to format and structure their response even before the person who is speaking has gotten to the end of their message. The person or the persons responding want to imply, want to show that they're really onto it, and they're thinking very clearly and sharply, and begin to almost finish your sentence, and that can get very irritating after a while, and also very problematic. So the point is, how do we keep both sides from reaching at a conclusion before the problems are properly defined? So that is the purpose of our total discussion here. And in the Harvard Business Review a few years ago, major research was published by two authors that companies, firms, organizations need to institute much tougher processes for screening out what they called wild ideas. Well, the thing is, buried among wild ideas, half-baked ideas, or crazy ideas are some very brilliant ideas. So we don't want to throw away all the early statements of wild ideas, because they are buried among them is a real idea. The question is, do we have a filtering process? And the research goes on to show that companies end up spending millions to billions of dollars on wrong ideas, and that's how poor performance takes place. How does one correct that? How does one improve that is very important thing to keep in mind. So intelligent disobedience is a trained response when the path ahead is identified as dangerous. So especially if things are simple, we don't have to be that disobedient because we can test it and try it. But when things are complicated, when projects are big, projects are risky, we need to know how to step through those. That's a very, very important part. And also, it is believed that owners of the project want to go regardless many times, or they don't want to take too much risk. So we as project managers, we as their people who are serving them, need to develop a trust with them to say, we are on the same team. So if I see your idea not being very good, or there's something holes in it, I am on your side to advise you in the right fashion. So how do you do that? And again, in general behavior, in general life, when you say no, the other person thinks you're not on their team. So there's a fine line between saying no and yes and how to do it. And there's a whole process of called Socratic based on Socrates' dialogues, that one can engage the other person to discuss and get at the right point rather than working on the wrong point. Many years ago, in fact, I was watching a late night show from the east coast of San Francisco called the Marin County, where there is a seeing eye dog school, and they were talking about how do they train their dogs to help the non-sighted people in traffic and other complicated places. So they showed a dog and the owner at a sidewalk, and when the lights turn from red to green in bigger cities, in bigger locations, the high traffic areas, not only the light turns, but there's a chirping sound indicating to the blind person that it is green in this direction now, and the blind person gives a tug to the dog, and dog now takes over and needs to do the right thing. The right thing is, if the path across the street is busy, people are walking, cars are moving, even though the light is green, the dog does not move. And that is intelligent disobedience. And the teacher on the show said that what happens is when the dogs and the owners are new and they have not developed an empathetic relationship with each other, trust with each other, many times the owner thinks the dog is not paying any attention. And the owner then gives a bigger tug, and now the dog is confused. Dog sees danger, does not move, but is now being directed by the owner with a bigger tug to move. And the term the teacher used was begrudging compliance. And now the dog may move or does move, and she said that is not a pretty sight anymore because accidents can take place. That to me was rather revealing. A dog is taking a double if condition. All of those in the audience who are programmers, double if is if risky or if traffic is moving and not safe and the owner says move, the dog doesn't move. Many programmers can't code that well. So that was the seeding of the idea. Next day, I discussed with my staff and colleagues that what do we do as a profession? Do we put our owners, our customers in harm's way by moving when it is risky and not, giving the right response? So that's where intelligent disobedience comes from, because the antonym, the opposite of intelligent disobedience is begrudging compliance, and that is not a good end result. So the idea is, how do we deal with half-baked ideas in projects? How do we say no and live to talk about this? And from that point of view came the challenge of half-baked ideas. And we created a little research item to look at that. And this is where the 24 ideas that were considered by these major companies, 11 were actually launched, and then only one idea showed chance of success. A major research on this. So again, how many millions of dollars were spent on projects that were launched but were not successful? So imagine an organization that can put a good filtering process early in the project life cycle, which is very empathetic.